On January the 31st, we were listening to the radio, and they said that one of our aircraft from my company had been shot down inside the city of Hue, and that there were survivors, and they had taken refuge in the South Vietnamese Army compound, but they were all wounded, and nobody knew their status. 3 helicopters from other units had attempted a rescue and been driven off by the intense anti-aircraft fire. And then Corps put out the order to stay clear of Hue because the anti-aircraft fire was just too heavy. It was just not survivable for a helicopter. It looked like the Corps commander wanted to leave our soldiers there, and of course we don't do that. So I asked my crew if they would go with me on a rescue attempt.
The place we were at was called the Iron Triangle, and another good name for it was a death trap. Every unit went out there was wiped out. Our mission was a company-sized raid on this huge mountain outpost. They had about a battalion of Chinese up there. We sent one platoon up the front of the mountain as a diversion, and the rest of the men went around to the back of the mountain, which was a good half mile away. We had to fight our way through bunkers, trenches, lines all the way up. And by the time we got up to what we would call a salting position, we were in a really bad situation. So I drug the radio up to the company commander. The colonel told him to reorganize and make one final attempt to take the mountain. And the company commander looked up and he got this very hopeless look on his face. I don't think I ever seen a look on a man's face like that, just hopeless. And I said, well, I'll take it up for you, Captain. And he said, how you gonna do it? I said, I'm going straight ahead shooting, Captain. I'll take you men with me and we'll go straight in shooting. If we make the trench, we got a chance. And he said, you're not gonna make it. I said, well, we'll try.
Sergeant James Gant from Lansing, Michigan. He was the meanest sergeant I ever seen in my life, and he would make us take each bullet out of our clip every night before it got dark and polish it. He was just a bitter old man, and that's why he was picking on us. Just before dark, the enemy broke contact, and a helicopter, one of our helicopters, came in and sat down, and a major got out. And he said, your probability of getting hit tonight is 100%. So prepare yourselves. He got back in his helicopter and away he went. Well, at 2 o'clock exactly, and I remember because I looked at my watch, we heard mortars sliding down the tube, which is a very distinctive sound, and to hear them sliding down the tube, you gotta be pretty close. And I said immediately, I said, well, when did we move in mortars? And Hart said, we didn't.
When we got to Iwo Jima, they told us that we probably would never even get off ship because we were a reserve division. The other 2 divisions had roughly 40,000 Marines that were going to be on that wee little island. Well, after they lost something like 5,000 on the first day, they decided they were going to have more people. The Japanese pillboxes had us stalled, and as we were trying to get across the airfields there, we were losing Marines very rapidly. And sometimes even commanding officers get desperate. So, losing men rapidly, he asked me, as a demolition man, if I thought I could do anything about those pillboxes that were out there. I have no idea what I said. Not the slightest idea. Somebody in my unit said, I said, I'll try.
We started down a river and we were taking fire from all quadrants, and my gunners were returning fire with their M60s and suppressing as best they could, and you could hear the bullets hitting the helicopter. But everybody was so darn busy doing what they do that we didn't really know how bad we were hurt.
They had given me 4 rifle people, and they were to give me protection while I was out there trying to knock out some of those pillboxes. 2 of those men, in the early part of the 4 hours that I was trying to do this job, I lost them.
It was just like living in a bad dream. You know, no matter what I did, it's like I wasn't doing nothing to them. You know, it was 1,500 enemy against 42 kids, and they just kept coming.
I got about 2 feet from the Chinese. They had about 35 Chinese coming at me. The only thing that separated us was the dirt from their trench. I was on one side of it and they was on the other. And I stopped and looked back and I was by myself.
Saw the compound, And that's when I saw the big flagpole in the middle of it that nobody told me about. And I figured I just barely had enough clearance to get in there with a 48-foot rotor system. And that's when I found out that there was a lot of dust in the compound. And so all of a sudden I couldn't see where I was going. I knew there was a flagpole and I knew there was a building, but I had no idea where they were.
Well, I fired the last rounds, and I didn't think that I was probably going to see daylight, but I wasn't going to quit. You know, because I thought, well, if I don't do my job, those guys behind me ain't got a chance.
I said, well, Ron Rosser, you went to a lot of trouble to get here. Let's give it a go. I let out a war whoop like a wild Apache Indian and jumped in the trench with them.
Came over the wall, and I just said, well, plant the helicopter. So I planted the helicopter.
So I asked the man above to give me the strength to carry all three of my brothers at one time.
So I run up and I said, come on, boy, let's get the hell out of here.
And as they were loading the wounded, the dust started to clear a little bit. And I had about equal distance between the flagpole and the building with my rotor blades. There was about 2 feet on either side.
Don't ask me how I did it. I don't know how I did it. But in 4 hours, I knocked out 7 of those things. But I always have to say this medal doesn't belong to me. It belongs to those 2 Marines who did not get to come home. I was just doing my job. They did more than their job.
You know, there's something about the Medal of Honor. It's a privilege, it's an honor to wear it. And most of us that you talk to will always tell the same story. We don't wear it for ourselves, we wear it for all those that can't.
I've learned what it represents, and that alone is what makes you feel so humble.
It's a symbol of a valuing of something greater than self.
It's not a question of heroism, it's a question of doing what you need to do because nobody else can do it.
You feel an obligation to not let down the people either whom you're leading or who are standing beside you or fighting beside you.
I believe firmly that my job was to care for the guys.
I've always had a feeling that I couldn't let my friends down.
No matter how much we love our country, we fought for each other.
A lot of people think that the great thing about the Medal of Honor is it's awarded by Congress and presented by the President. But to me, the real honor of the Medal of Honor is that a handful of young men who were with you at a difficult time thought you was worthy of it.
So I'm crawling back to help Bill Few's guys when I came across my mean old sergeant again. He had a big hole in his chest, and he couldn't talk, but he picked his hand up. And I thought, my sergeant wants me to hold his hand. So I kind of crawled up and I grabbed a hold, and I still was hoping that he was going to tell me what to do next, you know. And I grabbed a hold of his hand and I looked down in his eyes. The light bulb that comes on in your head that your daddy always told you about, the light bulb came on. All these things that he had, polishing the bullet, the beehive round, setting the time fuse on it, setting out in 100-degree heat with a blindfold. Sergeant Gant shared with us the things that he knew was going to help us survive. And when I looked down in his eyes, I knew that he didn't hate me, that he loved me. You got to love somebody a whole lot to pick on them and teach them things.
You read about this thing when you're a kid, but you don't ever in your wildest dreams suspect that any time in your lifetime that you would ever be thought of to receive this award.
I think that we wear it for any American, civilian or military, that does the job they're assigned, no matter what it is, the best they can do it, and they're responsible. I think that's what makes the country.
It's important that our children look at that and say, courage is a good thing. Sacrifice is a good thing.
The medal represents what the country has always stood for. Sacrifice. We wouldn't be here if somebody hadn't sacrificed for us before we got here.
I'm alive today because I had them damn good men. Huh? I get emotional about it. We're in a free country. And why are we? Because a lot of people, black, white, yellow, went and gave their lives so that you and I could live free. Huh? Simple as that.
It didn't matter where you were from or who you were, we looked out for one another. And that same thing can apply to the United States of America. And every citizen, take care of one another.
Whether it's in the military and you have a military commitment, or whether it's in the private sector or in school, you don't let your buddies on the left and the right down. You just do what's right and they'll do it for you, and that's what makes this country so great.